Hey, what's up? Kellen from Movement Parallels Life. Thanks for tuning in to this movement and mobility practice today. We're going to keep things light in light of what's going on in the world right now. I think it's a good idea to downshift from some of the intensity and really focus on taking care of your body. Don't run yourself down into the ground. Don't add too much stress to your life, but do keep moving and stay active to stimulate your immune system and good health. So that's exactly what the focus is today. We're going to start off with a little bit of ground movement for mobility. We'll incorporate some dynamic movement patterns, and then we'll get into some static stretching. The whole thing should take about 30 minutes. If you're new to the channel, this is a great beginner practice because we're going to slow things down. We're going to break down the movements and give you plenty of time to practice, figure out how to make these movements work for you. You're not going to need any equipment for this one, just a mat and some open floor space. Work with the movements, work with the range of motion you have, and you can build on that progressively. All right, that's enough of an introduction. Let's get moving. All right, we're going to kick things off today with our ground movement series. 4 different patterns. They're pretty simple movements that are going to help you build mobility and check in with your body. So we're going to break these movements down one by one, give you a chance to practice, and then we're going to go through 3 consecutive rounds, switching movements every 30 seconds. So it starts in this figure 4 seated position. You round your spine as you rock back. Come back up to seated. Just make sure that that movement is smooth. And then we'll add a little bit more momentum, rock all the way up to a half kneeling position. Ease your way back to seated and into your next rock up. Work that on one side. Once you find a good rhythm, switch. Make sure it works the same on the other side. Now start to alternate as you rock back, switch your legs. And just take a few more seconds to play around with this. See how it changes if you position your feet close together or a little bit farther apart, how that changes the stretch in the hips or the balance. You've got plenty of room to play with these movements and figure out how to express them, how to work the angles that give you the best stretch. Okay? So that's our figure 4 rock up, our second movement pattern. We've got the side bent sit hip swivels. Another easy one, but a nice one for hip mobility. So setting up a strong position, that's first. Make sure this front leg is about 90 degrees. I like to have the front foot flexed and be able to sit up as tall as you can here and avoid slouching to the side. So even if that means some ground contact, post your hands back behind your hips so you can keep your spine long. From there, the feet are going to stay in contact with the ground and your knees are just going to lift up and over. And as you do that, really feel this internal rotation. Pressing into the ground, get grounded, sit tall, find your stability before you make the next transition. You just take 10 seconds or so to get a feel for this simple movement. Should feel generally the same between the right and left sides. And if we want to add on one more layer here, starting to rise up to a split kneel position. Control the sit back to the ground. Lean back slightly, swivel the hips. Rise up. Throw one more little transition in there. Not to make things too confusing. When you come up, windshield wiper your legs. It's these little variations and these little movements that you can start to add in as you feel more comfortable, because again, this becomes more playful. You have a chance to explore a little bit and get outside the box rather than this just being one set exercise. All right, so we had our figure 4 rock ups, we had our side bent sit hip swivels, our third movement pattern. We're going to start at kneeling. Any comfortable kneel for you, so if it's a low kneel with flat feet, great. Maybe you like toes tucked, or maybe you like to be a little bit higher. That's all your call, what feels best in your body. Our movement here, once you've got a good stable position, is to rotate through the shoulders, plant the hand, just a touch point there, and reach across your body. Really extend into this reach. Take some time to linger there. Feel the stretch. Feel how you can make any changes to tailor that stretch for you. And then come back. Maybe try a few of those. Reach and try some different angles. Reach low. Reach towards the horizon. Reach up to the sky. Another option here. Lowering down to the elbow and reaching, a little bit more spinal extension, more mobility necessary there. But if that works for you, do it. Try the other side. Again, check in with both sides, see how that feels for your body. Notice what there is to notice, and if everything feels good, then see if you can increase the tempo just slightly, alternate from side to side. And you can start playing with some of those variables, changing your kneeling stance, changing your height. Take about 10 more seconds to practice here. Awesome. Okay. Figure 4 rock-ups. Side bend sit, hip swivels, kneeling rotation reaches, and our fourth and final pattern is going to be a half kneeling step out. So again, from the kneeling position, drive your hips forward, come up to a tall kneel, and then step one leg forward, glide into the stretch. Really lengthen through the back hip and pull forward, driving your knee forward into the stretch. Rock back slightly, and then reposition your foot. Open the hip slightly, and then shift at that angle. See how that changes things. Then one more time. Open the hip, shift the weight, and then come back to a tall kneel and switch sides. Step out, elongate, lean in, reach, glide back to reposition the foot. One more time. So we've got all these different angles to play around with, to explore hip mobility, to get into some deep knee flexion, and to really work into ankle dorsiflexion. These are all key pieces for lunging, for squatting, for a lot of lower body work. So how can you start to promote mobility in these areas for better performance and fewer injuries? It's a good look. All right, so just back and forth, smooth things out a little bit, shifting your weight and moving from kneeling to half kneeling. Start exploring some of these variations, changing your orientation, moving around while you go through this specific pattern. So these are all ways that you can start to play as you get more familiar with these movements. Now we've got plenty of time to practice because we're going to go through that series 3 rounds, switching movements every 30 seconds. So we'll start off figure 4s, then into our side bend sit swivels. We're going to go from round to round. Just stay moving, stay breathing. You don't have to be going super intense here, but pay attention, be mindful of your movements, connect in. All right, let's get started. Round 1, figure 4 rock-ups. Side bend, sit, hip swivels. Kneeling rotation reaches. And then half kneeling step outs. All right, here we go. Round 2, back to figure 4 rock-ups. Side bend, sit, hip swivels. Kneeling rotation reaches. And kneeling step outs. All right, third and final round. Here we go, back to rock-ups. Transition to hip swivels. Kneeling rotation reaches. and kneeling step outs to finish off this first series. That's time. Ground movement series is done. Take a quick rest. We'll get right into the dynamic patterns next. All right, next up, we've got our dynamic movement series, 5 patterns, and we're gonna go through for a minute on each pattern. This first round, we'll get acclimated, practice each of those movements, and then we'll go through each one circuit style for 2 rounds. So we're gonna start things off back in that side bent sit position. And now instead of that swivel transition, we're gonna do a hip switch. So we've got a little bit more momentum here as your back leg swings. Figure 4 legs, switch, and then take your straight leg, wrap it back. So the best way to start to coordinate this movement is by using your hands to push off on the ground. So from side bend sit here, leaning, planting the hand, pressing in, as you swing the leg forward. Switch, boom. Once you get to side bend sit, bring it right back. Switch, 1, 2. Just see if you can link a few of those together. As the speed increases, you're gonna feel how you need to keep your core braced tight, your shoulders back. So keep going with that for about 10 more seconds. And while we're going through, you've got the hip switch as the primary movement, but you can still add in some of these swivels and rises up to kneeling as well to add some variation and continue to explore the movement for the sake of more mobility. All right, pattern number 2, we're coming to a crawl position. So if you start on hands and knees, we want the arms locked out, fingers spread, palms grounded. Spin the pits of the elbows forward. Create length from the crown of your head down to your tailbone and brace your midsection. So from here, tuck your toes and lift your knees to hover 2 inches off the ground. Just see if you can hang out there. March your feet. And then pick one foot up, reach it across your body. Reaching for the ground, really stretch to reach the ground and bring it back. Lift, reach, and start to roll over. So I really like to focus on the stretch here. It's not just picking up the foot and falling over to the side, but I want you to focus on pick up and draw the hip back, extend, finding that stretch and finding the ground. You're going to find all kinds of interesting stretches if you can really focus on slowing down and being stable. So this one's called the foot hand crawl rollover. As you roll, find your stretch. You can start to add some crawling steps, change your orientation, or you can lift your hips. Lift and start to reach across. So that pattern is all up to you. You can vary that however you want, work within your available range of motion, your mobility, and just make sure that you can demonstrate control with whatever variation you go with. All right, third movement, we got diagonal swings. So this is a dynamic stretch you're gonna perform from standing. I like to start in a split stance.
and my arms are swinging from high to low across my front leg. So I'm going to reach and pull down across. So you get a lot of rotation here, stretching diagonally across the body. And as your arms complete the action, you're sinking down into your hips. So different patterns here, alternating sides, or even just working 3 to 5 reps on one side, rotating your stance, work 3 to 5 on the other. So looking for the combination of mobility and stability here. Root into the ground, brace the core, and the more stable you are, the more momentum you can create with the swing of the arms, the more of a dynamic stretch you get. Fourth pattern, back lunge and back reach. Step back to a back lunge position. I step back with my left, so I'm going to reach back with my left. Step in, step back right, reach back right. That's the baseline. You can certainly mix it up by rotating the opposite direction. Completely up to you. Just make sure that you maintain your balance, maintain your stability. And then our fifth and final movement pattern, we've got squat shifting. So starting from a wide stance here, shifting the weight and sitting from side to side. So use your hands for extra support. So you're going to walk your way side to side, but do try to focus on maintaining this elongated spine and upright torso. You can start out with more of a forward hinge, but try to sit your hips down and sit upright. All right, generally pretty simple movements, but not necessarily easy. So we got some practice time coming up. Once again, we're gonna go through 2 rounds, 1 minute per movement. Let's get started. Get set up in your side bend sit position, and we'll go with our hip switches. That's halfway through, 30 seconds to go. If you want to start adding a little bit more variation now that you've got the rhythm down, go for it. Switch, rise up to kneel, switch, swivel, swivel, switch, rise up. Last 5 seconds, gonna pick up the pace just a touch. And then transitioning into the crawl. Strong crawl position. Step 1 foot up, reach, roll, and come back. Halfway through. Rise up to standing, diagonal swings. Halfway through. Back lunge and back reach. Step back. I'm going to get one reach on each side. Same side, opposite side. Halfway. Wide stance. Finish this first round with squat shifting. Thirty more seconds here. That's time. We'll take a 30-second break. All right, here we go. Coming back for round two, starting off with side bend sit hip switches. Keep moving, just about 20 seconds left. Transition to crawl position and into those rollovers. Up to standing and into diagonal swings. Back lunges and back reaches. Wide stance. We'll finish this out with squat shifting. That's time. We're gonna finish up this practice with just a little bit of static stretching. Start off, half kneeling position. My right knee is down. I'm gonna plant my right hand, this posted arm. My left arm is gonna come overhead, and then I'm gonna sit my hips over to the left. Just shift the weight, start to create the stretch through my side body, starting to arch. Make those slight changes to the position so you can really feel the stretch deeply. And kind of recognize that there's the difference between just kind of hanging out here and really pressing into the ground, shifting the weight and elongating through the reach. Really makes all the difference for gains in flexibility. So don't settle for just being passive in your stretches, but really work for it. Create the stretch for yourself. Switch sides. Half kneel, plant, and reach. Spend 1 more minute with this stretch. Just going to gently move from side to side. Hang out in whatever expression feels best for you. Last few seconds here. Relax out of that stretch. Final stretch today. We'll go with a shoulder flexion stretch. So you can do this on the ground, like so. Or you can elevate your hands on a chair or a table. This is going to give you a little bit deeper stretch. Plant the hands. Make sure that you don't start to arch your spine too much, but keep your pelvis tucked, keep your core strong. Hands are pressing strongly down into the chair. And then really push, gently push or melt your chest down towards the ground. You can start to rotate. Work one arm. Move in and out of the stretch or hold it as long as you're maintaining some of that activation. Soft strength to support your stretches. Last 15 seconds here holding this stretch. And that's time. So that's it for today's practice. As always, thank you for coming in. Thank you for moving with me. I appreciate you. If you have any questions, you like the practice, leave a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel. That's it for now. I'll see you in the next video.